Picture this, it's just weeks before the absolute busiest global shipping season of the entire year. The global logistics network is stretched to its limit, right, carrying literally millions of packages a day. Now, imagine a sudden, catastrophic mechanical failure that forces an entire fleet of vital, heavy-lift cargo aircraft totally out of the sky. At first, everything seemed absolutely normal during a routine departure, but in a matter of seconds, an unthinkable structural failure occurred. So you have to ask yourself, what single tiny component could possibly ground an entire fleet of massive cargo jets? Welcome back to Airflight Space, where we explore aviation stories, air safety investigations, industry developments, and the lessons shaping modern flight. Today, we're digging into the shocking November grounding of the iconic Boeing MD-11F trijet fleet. Following a fatal UPS accident in Louisville, the aviation industry was thrust into this incredible high-stakes mystery. Investigators had to figure out exactly what went wrong, and they had to do it fast, while logistics giants were basically racing against the clock to ensure their global supply chains wouldn't just completely collapse. Let's lay out the timeline real quick to give you some context on the who, where, and when. The whole thing kicked off in November with that tragic UPS accident in Louisville. Immediately, red flags went up across the industry, leading to a full grounding of the MD-11F fleet. And it wasn't until May, 6 full months later, that we saw the first real signs of recovery, with FedEx beginning to return their initial aircraft to service. By June, 4 aircraft were successfully reinstated, but those 6 months in between, that was a period of intense scrutiny and incredibly high-stakes engineering. Which brings us to Section 1, the investigation, uncovering the mechanical failure. When the NTSB arrived on the scene, they were looking at a massive, highly complex puzzle. But investigators quickly noticed something unusual and zeroed right in on a specific part of the aircraft's anatomy, the aft pylon attachment point. Now, to put that in simple terms, this is the critical structural link that physically connects the massive jet engine to the aircraft's wing. It's handling thousands of pounds of thrust, intense vibration, extreme temperature shifts, you name it. It is literally the absolute lifeline keeping that power plant secured to the airframe. So obviously, if this connection is compromised in any way, the results are catastrophic. And here is exactly what compromised it. The NTSB officially cited a fatigue fracture of a bearing race right there in that aft pylon attachment point. A bearing race is basically just the smooth track that rolling bearings sit inside to help reduce friction. Over time, microscopic stress or metal fatigue caused this tiny little piece of metal to fracture. And that single, isolated fracture caused the entire left-hand power plant to physically separate from the wing on takeoff. Think about that for a second. A massive, multi-ton jet engine tearing away from the aircraft because of a fractured bearing race. Keep this detail in mind because it reinforces exactly why aviation safety demands microscopic attention to detail. All right, let's move into Section 2, the fix, returning to the skies. The response here really brilliantly illustrates how the aviation industry tackles a crisis. During a briefing on June 23rd, FedEx chief Raj Subramaniam explained that they started safely returning these aircraft to service by, quote, working in lockstep with Boeing, the FAA, and the NTSB. He made a point to praise the efforts of their flight ops, technical ops, and airline safety teams. You see, this wasn't just some quick patch job. It was a highly authoritative, multi-agency effort requiring strict oversight to guarantee this specific structural failure could literally never happen again. So where do things stand right now? Well, FedEx started bringing these trijets back into service in May. They initially brought back 2 aircraft, and they've since successfully reintroduced 2 more, specifically N522FE and N617FE. That makes 4 aircraft back in the skies to date. And the pressure is absolutely on because FedEx is racing to get the entire fleet back online before their peak season begins. Because in the logistics world, missing peak season capacity, that is simply not an option. Which leads us to Section 3. Diverging strategies, FedEx versus UPS. Now, this is where things get really interesting. FedEx evaluated the fix and made the call to keep their MD-11F fleet in service all the way until 2032. They felt confident in the structural remedy and the ongoing utility of the planes. UPS, on the other hand, they made a vastly different calculation. In the direct aftermath of that fatal Louisville accident, UPS chose to permanently withdraw all of their MD-11Fs. Think about that. Same aircraft, same industry, but 2 completely diverging philosophies on risk management and fleet modernization. Let's look at the long-term plan in Section 4, the MD-11F's final glide path. As of May 31st, FedEx officially listed 29 MD-11F aircraft remaining in its active fleet. Now, while 29 is still a pretty robust number, it represents a really important drop from the 34 they operated just a year earlier. This shows us that while FedEx didn't ground the fleet permanently like UPS did, they are definitely managing a gradual phase-out. Looking at the broader context over the past year, FedEx actually opted to permanently retire 10 aircraft in total. 5 of those were the MD-11Fs we were just talking about. The other 5? Well, they consisted of 4 Boeing 757-200s and a single Airbus A300-600. So here's why this matters. These MD-11F retirements aren't just happening in a vacuum. They are part of a very deliberate, broader fleet modernization strategy as FedEx transitions over to newer, much more fuel-efficient twin-engine freighters. And that strategy is meticulously mapped out. We can actually see the exact year-by-year retirement schedule FedEx has planned all the way through 2032. Now, they do note this is subject to change, but right now the plan is to hold steady for a few years, then cut 2 aircraft in 2028, 6 in 2029, and then 7 in each of the subsequent 3 years leading up to 2032. This became a really key lesson for logistics planners everywhere. You can't just flip a switch and replace massive heavy lift capacity overnight. It requires years of staggered forecasting to make sure those supply chains don't break. So what can we actually learn from all of this? The absolute crucial takeaway is that aviation safety is an ever-evolving science. A single microscopic fatigue fracture in a bearing race, a tiny part most people will never even see, was enough to cause an engine separation, ground an entire global fleet right before peak season, and permanently alter the strategic trajectories of the world's 2 largest cargo airlines. It is just a profound lesson in structural resilience and the absolute life-saving importance of proactive, rigorous air safety investigations. As we watch these final remaining MD-11Fs slowly phase out over the next decade, we really have to ask, what will the cargo skies look like without this iconic trijet thundering overhead? It truly is the end of an era, driven by the relentless march of aviation safety and modernization. Thanks for watching this Airflight Space Explainer. If you found this explainer informative, leave a like and subscribe for more aviation investigations and air safety documentaries. Share your thoughts on the legacy of the MD-11 down below, and I'll see you in the next one.